And
recording works.
yes, thank you. So our agenda for today, we will have a short introduction about what is Eureka and applied artificial intelligence, then a case study from industry. Then we have a presentation, two presentations actually from the Eureka clusters, and then national funding opportunities in Austria for applied artificial intelligence projects. Our speakers today are Nadia Horbach, Sineb Sarila, Martin Treiber, and myself, Michael Walch. So let me just start right away. So what is Eureka and applied artificial intelligence? Just some introductory slides. As you have heard today, and as you are aware, artificial intelligence and the applications of artificial intelligence, they are driving the future, especially the future of hardware and software. You can see two examples, current examples on the slides. One is from Tesla, Tesla's Dojo supercomputer, easy to scale, low latency, power efficient exascale computation. And they had to develop their own chips for that. On the right-hand side of the slides, you can see the GPT-3, the DALI project from Google's OpenAI. It generates images based on a text prompt that you give to the algorithm, like create an armchair in the shape of an avocado, and as an output, you will get images. Of course, these are very big companies. They are also not from Europe. So what are we doing in Europe? Here is one example. I don't want to go into details about one very innovative project, a Eureka cluster project, AAIC. It's about safe driving under poor weather conditions. And in this project, they have to develop a lot of hardware, sensors, for example, and also software, a high definition map of the road environment, and also machine learning environments for training and so on. So this is a Eureka cluster project. So what is Eureka? Let me give you a very short introduction. Eureka is a leading platform for international cooperation. So that means we provide companies with tools if they want to engage in R&D projects that they can get funding. And funding is provided by the national funding bodies. In the case of Austria, this is the FFG, usually most of the time. The goal of Eureka is to produce R&D projects and to facilitate funding for these projects. The projects we are looking for are experimental development. They should be ready for market in 2 to 3 years. So to support all this, the Eureka brings together a network of countries. So you can participate in a consortium in an R&D project if you have partners from all these countries. And there are different instruments of Eureka, the cluster projects that we talked today, but also Eurostars and Eureka Network projects and Global Stars projects. So this is the family of Eureka instruments. Today we talk about one of them, that's the cluster projects. And the Eureka clusters, they have supported the AI topic over the last years. For example, there were dedicated calls in 2020 and 2021 that were very successful, where the Eureka clusters facilitated dedicated projects on AI in these two calls. And these projects are funded by the national funding bodies like the FFG, and we have different funding programs that can be used. I'll come back to that later. Of course, this was in the past. In the future, the AI topic will remain important. And the Eureka clusters still support this topic, and they are looking for projects on the topic of AI. And for example, there are 2 Eureka clusters, ITEA and Xecs, and they will have calls in the autumn. You will hear about the exact timeline where you can submit projects on applied artificial intelligence. So we will have the opportunity to ask questions in between, but we will at the end have a Q&A session. So if you don't want to be recorded for your questions, you can wait until the end and we can engage in a discussion there. But if you have questions until now, you can write them in the chat and maybe we can address them after the individual presentations. But now I would like to hand over to Martin Treiber to present a very successful Eureka clusters project from the past that is within the scope of the conference, an AI application in marketing and sales. Oh, please.
Okay, thank you for introducing myself. Hello, everybody. My name is Martin Treiber. I'm the CEO of Ikangai. And today I will give you a short introduction about the Solomon project. But first, I would like to take the opportunity and introduce my company. So be prepared for a short advertorial. So Ikangai, the name comes from the Japanese word for good idea, Ikangai, and was founded in 2014. We see ourselves as full service provider for mobile customer engagement. That means we help companies building mobile apps and using mobile channels to stay in touch with their customers in order to drive their turnover and to make money, to help them to generate more money. In Solomon, next slide, please. In Solomon, we were working as project leader from 2016 to 2020. It was funded by FFG and it was an ITEA 3 project. It had several main goals, 5 of them. First of all, obviously, with every project, you have to improve something, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. So our goal was improve the customer experience in brick and mortar stores. So to use digital technology to make it more interesting for people to shop. That's the bottom line. To that end, we had to integrate online information with offline data sensors and to come up with a customer experience with the customer journey that encompasses those data sources. So based on the data that we collected, we were also very careful already about data privacy. So when we started in 2016, GDPR was already in the horizon, and we already built it into the DNA of the project to really look at from a perspective how to keep the customer data safe and controlled by the customer themselves. In order to bridge the gap between the physical and the digital environment, we were using many different sensor technologies, Bluetooth-based, for instance, to create a connection between online and offline. And finally, we tried to bring things together that also the shop owners can benefit and control the data flows, get information about their shops, and basically, again, to make the shopping experience more attractive. To that end, we devised several prototypes. Next slide, please. The first one that we implemented, we called MAMA. It's short for Mobile App Maker App. The idea was to build an edge computing based system where users can create their own apps for different environments. One of the scenarios was to use it in shopping malls where you could enter, basically go to MAMA and ask for your own personal app. We experimented with different technologies, especially we were using the progressive web app stack to generate the app and the app framework. However, we also tried to be a bit more, let's say, experimental. We used Siri shortcuts, and we could ask Siri to build your own personal app, and Siri would ask you about your favorite colors and these things. It kind of worked, but again, it was experimental. It was very fun to implement. The next prototype that we also developed in the project, we called Ampus, Mobile Pop-Up Store. The idea was, again, similar to before, to use edge computing and to build, in this case, an interactive shelf where you could actually use your smartphone to engage with the shelf, get recommendations based on your shopping avatar profile, and get recommendations. And we are using a native app container built with for iOS with Objective-C to run the app. And again, the progressive web app stack was used for the end user. The next, which is already been mentioned in the before, it was called the shopping avatar. Here we actually took a deep look at privacy issues and privacy in shopping. As you're familiar probably with Amazon Go, where if you enter an Amazon store, 1 gazillion sensors are looking at you and registering every movement, and data is crazy what is there recorded. And you have no way of controlling that. You don't know what Amazon is doing with that. So what we thought is we should go a different way, especially in Europe with data protection laws. It's we have a different background, especially for retail. So we were looking at the initiative of Tim Berners-Lee called Solid. So he came up with what was called personal online data stores, pods, that we used for data management. So essentially you could create your pod, which was stored the semantic data, and you could control who was accessing the data. And we also built, experimented with an interface based on a chatbot, so that you can actually kind of talk with this shopping avatar. Shopping avatar could ask you questions like, can I share this data with XYZ? Are you okay with that? Again, it was experimental and was very fun to develop. As a computer scientist, it's always fun to play with these things. So in the project itself, there are some key takeaways which I like to stress explicitly. So first of all, working in a project like that opens a kind of technology playground for you as a company. Michael already mentioned it before. You get a bit of funding to look left and right, so to speak, and try out new technology, which you don't need to put immediately to market. You have a bit of time to experiment. This obviously mitigates the development risk for you, especially as a SME, like in our case. We also always have to be very careful where to go, where to invest our time and money. And working in a cluster project gives you international experience. It comes with the name. You work with companies from abroad, and it's a very interesting experience, and obviously generates visibility for you, and you learn how bigger companies work, how bigger companies approach the business, and it's really a very good thing to do. And there are some additional learnings, of course, not exclusively for SMEs, but based on this project, we have had some specifics. First of all, we were in a lucky position to have the project lead. So as we've never done this before, we had some previous experience with this kind of projects, but never had the project lead. It was something new for us. The first thing we noticed, obviously, it was very time consuming. You always have to be on track and to motivate others to stay on track. It could be sometimes a bit frustrating, truth be told, because some companies are not so active in the project, some are more active, and it's in the end of the day you deal with other people and it comes with the whole package. Of course, there's additional overhead in change management. You have to see if there are changes in the project. You have to adapt the proposal for FPP in the case of ITEA, for instance, and so on. Then, of course, in the project itself, it takes a while before the project partner find their way, find the process that actually works for the specific project. So what we did, we tried an agile approach with many meetings, stand-up meetings, virtually. In the beginning, we had lots of physical meetings, and we discussed this early on today already during the preparations. The aspect of physical meetings is super important, especially in the beginning of a project. So we couldn't have started or worked through the project without knowing each other that well, and that's only, in our experience, only possible with physical meetings. And of course, you have in the projects, you have to be patient with others, but especially with big companies, because in a small company, the decision processes, and they're rather efficient and rather short. So they sit together, and in 20 minutes, there's the decision made. But with bigger companies, you have to go through several layers, and that can be time consuming, and sometimes you have to be simply put patient. And of course, what we also did, we had lots of polls. So in order to document our decisions, we were simply using polls to see what we decided on, because it's also part of the documentation that it's very important, especially with remote meetings, so that you know what you had been decided. And this brings into the last learning, the discipline of remote work, that is needed, is also considerable. It's because remote work requires more attention from you working together than actual physical meetings. It's quite interesting. This was also what we learned. And what we ended up, we had, came from the decisions and from the reports, we really had specific time slots where we met. We were explicitly reserved only for the project. But this took a while to really do it, and also do it in a way that we had this repeatedly, or in our case, it was in a bi-weekly fashion. So if I look back in the project, there were several milestones and several things which I'm actually kind of proud of. Yeah. First of all, getting the funding. Thanks FFG again, and ITEA for supporting us. It was really, we had a bit of a rocky start in the project, but it worked out quite well. And obviously, leading a project is something which was, it was an experience. I hope to never share again. No, kidding. Then, of course, our prototypes that we implemented, like Ampus, that we showed off in Helsinki during Innovation Days, and got interesting feedback, not only positive, also critical ones, which was very good. Then we had the opportunity to showcase MAMA in the Smart City Expo in Barcelona. Very good location, huge conference, also something new for us, because we are always on smaller venues, but this was really big, and also a very good opportunity for us to learn how to present ourselves in this kind of setting. Of course, if you look at the time frame 2016 to 2020, it wouldn't be complete without mentioning COVID. Ooh, I know, but there it is. This was really towards the end of the project, and last year I added to the challenge of running a project, and that was really something tough, because people were working remote for their companies and working in a remote project. So they were twice as remote as typically. And that also required from us putting more effort into coordination and meetings and online meetings. So that was always, it was a challenge, but I'm glad we made it through. And the last thing is the shopping avatar, which I'm particularly proud of, because I think it's a future-proof identity system. However, it's a tough sell for retail. Truth be told, when we approach our customers, Austrians, we know the answer to that. It's like Savos. So what is it good for? Put nicely in a nicely way. But I think it's with the European Union pushing in the direction of really protecting the customer data and giving customers the control over data. I think that's a very interesting venue to explore and to do it for the future projects, especially with connecting with this, which is a bit to AI part. We're getting a more smart or intelligent shopping avatar that uses machine learning approaches for you to get recommendations, and at the same time keeping your data as private as possible. So I guess that's it for me. So you've heard from us now, and yeah, I'm really eager to hear from you now. You can reach out, you see the contact information, you can reach out anytime to us, ask questions about the project or other things. We are happy to answer them, and of course also during the Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So that was a nice report about a project on smart shopping experience that combines software innovation and electronic components when you gather a lot of data and process this data. And it was a Eureka cluster project. So if there are questions now for these projects, please feel free to ask them. Otherwise, we can come back to it in the Q&A sessions or afterwards. So now I would like to pass the floor to Zineb Sarilar for presenting a Eureka cluster. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I would like to thank you all. I would like to introduce ITEA. We are an Eureka cluster, as you have mentioned, but we are focusing on the fostering software innovation. ITEA is a kind of transnational industry-driven R&D organization. As I said, our focus on software innovation, and it's a global and trusted cooperation with, for an industrial community, but also we are combining this industrial community with the public authorities. So our projects are created by the industry, funded by the public public authorities, and we are focusing on the commercialization of the research projects. I will give also an impact result of a research project during this one. And we always focus on the high quality process and support, as already Martin mentioned. As being the IT office, we are always supporting the community to build up good, successful projects. When we're talking about software innovation, it is all wide topics. So here it is a kind of inspiration for you. We are working on smart city, smart mobility, smart communities, healthcare, and we are not limited to that one. As already mentioned, clusters are bottom up. So any topic is related as long as it has software innovation inside it. And as I have mentioned, that we are led by industry, and yeah, this is the industry. You see the company names over there. That is the industrial board members of ITEA. So you see many different companies from different industries, but they're all focused on software innovation. And you see the flags of the countries that are assigned some public authorities like Michael for us to work on the ITEA projects together. Okay, and these are some facts from ITEA. ITEA has been established already more than 20 years. So you hear ITEA 3, ITEA 4. Just recently we moved from ITEA 3 to ITEA 4. And you can see some numbers, it's global network, yeah. And if you're asking how to apply to ITEA, every year in September, I will give some more details about that. We have a project outline day. This year it will be in Helsinki. But before that, I would highly recommend that you register to ITEA website. You just give one email address and you're there. And you can start working on the project idea tool. It's an online tool that you can put your ideas. And then this is the timeline that we follow. First, it's a shorter version with the project outline. And then we invited some projects with innovation, with market relevance, with a strong consortium to the full project proposal. And then it goes for the funding with the national authorities. Yeah, AI, software innovation, and AI and machine learning, they're already combined. You can see already many projects within the ITEA concept is directly related with AI. We have been already developed many projects. As Martin has mentioned, 2016, it was already AI, and I'm going to talk about a success story that has started in 2015 already. So AI is a hot topic. So if you're working on, you're more than welcome for ITEA community. Okay. Yeah, this is a successful project. As I have mentioned, it started in 2015. And that was really with the large industry. You see a consortium, it's a large industry, SME and research institutes like TNO, they combine a project. It's a small project with really big impact, because here it was OCE, now it's becoming Canon as a board member of ITEA also, Philips, Siemens, and Barco. They are the large industry. They worked on AI technologies and machine learning to improve their manufacturing or maintenance timeline. And Yazum and Aksini, they're all small SMEs. And yeah, in the next slide, you can see the impact, the economical impact that has been created with this project. You see with OCE in the second bullet, that has been already big pools of printers, and they were looking for an error that has stopped the printing, and it was already a week to identify the problem, and it has been decreased to 30%. And then you see new data scientist jobs has been created, and if you, from the Philips and Barco, they created, so they work on the MRI devices to understand the end user's usage, and they define the success, they define what to use, what not to use for their production line based on the AI and machine learning. And the last one is coming from an SME. So whenever there's a success, it's SMEs are also going into the commercial line also. Yeah, this is a recipe for success. As I have mentioned, this is ITEA PO Days in September, that we will have it on the 13th, 14th, and it's extended to the 15th of September. You're more than welcome to join. It is usually 34% to 40% newcomers. So if you are new, you're more than welcome. And I highly recommend that you come, because as you see, there's a statistics of 75% of the projects who get the ITEA quality stamp of labeling had been presented in the PO Days. You don't need to build up the consortium before you come. If you do it, it's good. But there is one thing that is also important. Please get in touch with your public authorities, with Michael, before you have the idea even, and then check if it is valid or not for the funding. So we are waiting for you to join this event and to build up new ideas with this AI community. This is the main purpose of this event indeed that we're joining now here. Yeah, and this is also, as Michael has mentioned, we are doing joint calls, and this is a project coming from Xecs and ITEA doing it together. You can see the semiconductor producers has been using the AI technologies to optimize the manufacturing, the production thing. So AI is everywhere, software is everywhere, hardware is everywhere, but we still need new technologies and innovation. And this project, it has just started. We expect good outcomes for the, Eureka industry as a result. And this project has been selected to present it to you because it also shows how two different clusters collaborate with each other. It is between ITEA and Xecs. And now I would like to give the floor to Nadia for the Xecs.
Thank you, Zeynep, and thank you, Michael. I don't know whether there are questions which should be answered maybe in between. Okay, thank you. So I will present you another Eureka cluster, which is the cluster Xecs. If you go to the next slide, please. So Xecs, it stands for Electronic Components and Systems. So it's a Eureka cluster supporting RD&I projects in the field of that one. And the Eureka cluster is always a joint initiative between public authorities and private entities, like large enterprises, SMEs, universities, and RTOs. The aim is always to generate and to enable projects to develop transnational RD&I projects close to the market. And the cluster Xecs is managed and operated by ENEAS, which is an industry association. And we as Xecs benefit from complementary activities in which ENEAS is also involved, like the KDT joint undertaking. But also we benefit from direct experience from former clusters, which were also managed and operated by ENEAS, like Katrine or Euripides and Penta. And we have also two other industry associations which support the cluster XECS, which are EPOS and Insight. The Aeneas Association is a non-for-profit industrial association, and members are coming from the large industries, SMEs, research institutes, academia. And the idea is to catalyze RD&I collaborative activities in the electronic component systems value chain and to support the development of the digital economy. Being an Aeneas member, by the way, is free of charge, but you still will profit from all the services which we offer to you. By being an Aeneas member, you will have access to a huge community. You can network within this community, shape with us together the future. We, as the organization, can influence also the stakeholders, the decision makers at EU level, but also at national level. We support and help you to create your projects and at the end to generate impact. And on the next slide, you can see also like ITEA, we have also board members. You can see here the 20 board members. We have more than 450 members in our community. Kurt Sievers, he's the president and the CEO of NXP Semiconductors. He is currently the Aeneas president, and all the community, you can see here a bit what they are all doing. It's like the design tool development materials, but also like chips. This is what was mentioned by Michael with this example from Tesla, who developed their own chips, all up to the application part. And then the question is maybe for you on the next slide to see, so how is AI connected with the electronic components and systems? So all what we do is based on our strategic research and innovation agenda. This is a huge document which is available online with different chapters. So we have the foundational technology layers, but we have also the cross-sectional technologies like AI, for instance. So like embedded AI. So it might be of interest for you to specifically have a look to that chapter. And we have, of course, all the applications areas, which are similarly broad as for ITEA, from mobility, energy, health, agriculture, digital society, digital industry. And also included in the SRIA is the long-term vision. So this SRIA is the basis for all our activities together from the three associations, be it for KDT or be it for XECS. So on the next slide, a little bit more in detail explanation. So what this cross-sectional technology AI is about. So we are talking about edge computing and embedded AI, embedding data analytics and AI. And one of the mainstreams is to allow a better interface between the real world and the computing infrastructure by interpreting the naturally unstructured data, such as image files, audio files, physical sensor data, where currently analytic methods are inefficient or inexistent. But also we are looking for AI techniques, also allowing to leverage the increasing availability of data to enrich the electronic devices with decision-making capabilities, which can be adaptive or over time thanks to machine learning approaches, which you will see also in one of the project examples reflected. And one key trend is to perform AI-based tasks as close as possible to the raw data source, so which is called the edge computing, and identifying the inside data as early as possible and bringing several benefits such as reduced latency, bandwidth, power consumption, memory footprint, and finally, better security and data protection. On the next slide, as mentioned, one example which was already presented a little bit by Michael, it's this project AAIC, which is a co-labeled Penta-Euripides project. So it recently started, and it's all about how we can ensure in the automated driving the reliability and even in adverse weather conditions. So to make sure that, for instance, if you have this automated driving and it becomes very foggy, and then that the system decides, oh, it's better now that the driver again takes over, it might become too difficult to go forward with the automated driving. So this is all under development, and this is about what was just mentioned. So this reliable, secure, trustable sensors and software by implementing self-diagnosis. And here AI plays a huge role, but again, connected to the hardware development. And as Zeynep already said, you cannot develop hardware without the software. So all is connected to each other. And now to give you a bit more inside view about these different funding instruments, you might be puzzled. Yes, there are all these large EU funding instruments. We have the national funding, etc. So all the Eureka clusters, not only the cluster XECS, they are part of Eureka and part of this transnational program, following the national priorities. And the funding is always coming from the national funding agencies. So you follow also the national funding rules. You have the completely national part, which is now the IPSIs, which are coming more and more. And then you have on the other side, you have the joint initiatives between countries and the EU, like for instance, KDT or Excel-JU in the past. And this is following national and European priorities. And you will have two contracts, one from the EC and one national contract, which makes it maybe a bit more complicated, but also here the projects are much larger. And as you can see here, all the different industry associations also are involved in the KDT activities. And then you have the pure Horizon Europe initiatives, which is purely following the European priorities, and you have the contract from the EC. And so you can see the Eureka and the Eureka clusters are perfectly placed in between those different programs. And the next slide, then you might question, so why should I participate in an international project? Not only collaborate, but even in an international project. So there are several benefits, and some of them were already mentioned by Martin. You can take advantage of this transnational RD&I cooperation. You will have access to different knowledge and to different experiences. You can cooperate together with the large companies, specifically be an SME, and so make it more, your project more successful and having a higher chance really to bring your product to the market with well-experienced large companies. And in our community, so you have also benefit from this multiple and diversified partnership opportunities, because we have all the members are from the different parties, as just explained to you. In our context, it's of course about the ECS community, and it's from the research to the end applications and to create impactful collaborative ecosystems along the whole value chain. It will boost finally your competitiveness, accelerate your growth, and shorten your time to market, and you will share the risk also. You will have access to expertise and get professional guidance, coaching, and mentoring from experienced industrial experts and from the XECS team. And so how does XECS work? This is also something which applies more or less also for all the clusters. It all starts with idea generation. We all offer you brokerage events and opportunities. You start to build your consortium and you submit your project outline. We also follow a two-step call process like ITEA. After intensive detailed feedback from the technical experts and the public authorities, you improve your project proposal and submit the full project proposal. Then we decide together with the public authorities which projects will be labeled and funded at the end. And then we also follow up your project. So we help you if there is a change in your project, because this often happens that you have maybe to take a different direction. You need an additional partner. One partner might step out for a certain reason, etc., etc. So also during the monitoring phase, we will involve our experts to help you to make your project really a success and to have something which you can bring to the market at the end. We have final reviews, but also after that, we would like to know what is the long-term impact of the projects. This is the call timeline for our second call. As you can see, we will launch the call end of September, and then you can start with your project idea generation. We have a huge event, the FX event, where also we have a pre-brokerage event for you to get connected to possible partners to build your consortia. And in January 23, there will be the ECS brokerage event. And then you can start also to prepare your project submission, the project outline submission. You can see here already the dates for our deadlines. And in September next year, we will take the decision about the projects to be labeled and funded. And then if you are lucky and the public authorities are fast, you might even start end of 23 with your project. but we will also try to make it as synchronized as possible so that the national funding decisions are in place, hopefully more or less at the same time. And then on the next slide, so what is the typical project about? As I said, the clusters are perfectly placed in between the national programs and the large EU programs. And this is also the case for the size of the projects. Usually we have 4 to 15 participants. We have 3 to 5 Eureka member countries involved, but the participation is not restricted to the Eureka member countries. You can invite any participant from any country all over the world, as long as those partners make sure that they can cover their project costs. The project costs are something between 2 and 30 million. So all these figures are averages. So if it is more than 30 million and if it is more than 15 participants, it doesn't matter, it's all possible. Again, so this is an average to give you an idea how large the XECS projects or cluster projects are usually. The maximum duration is 36 months. But if you are facing some difficulties, of course, we can discuss about prolongation of the project together with the public authorities. And so for us, XECS, it's all along the ECS value chain and also reflecting what is written in our strategic research and innovation agenda. A few figures for you to see, though we have a very high success rate of 32%. This is also due to our coaching and mentoring approach and the detailed feedback you receive in order to improve your project. And this is also for the public authorities. So to give you really some guidance how to improve your project to raise your chances for funding. You can see here that we have a very high SME participation, which is about 40%. So all SMEs are really welcome to join projects. And not only SMEs, but also newcomers are always welcome to join. This is not a closed community. It's really a very open environment. And we have 24 countries involved. As you can see in the next slide, for instance, we have currently 21 countries supporting XECS. But again, this is not restricted to those countries. You please feel free to invite any other partner from any other country which you would like to see in your consortium, which will create also a benefit for your consortium. As mentioned, there will be this huge FX event, 24th to 25th November. We usually expect 600 to 800 participants. You have the possibility for matchmaking, to present your project ideas, to pitch them. We have poster sessions. You can also present your project results. And for INEAS members, participation of FX is for free. And then usually in January, we have an ECS brokerage event. So we have not defined yet the concrete date. Usually those take place in Brussels, and so more to come. And if you register for our newsletter on our website, you will be, of course, informed about that. You can follow us also on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And we have a little team for the next slide also supporting also. Please, if you have any question with regard to XECS itself, with regard to INEAS submission, what is the difference between KDT and XECS, etc., please don't hesitate to contact any of us. Thank you very much.
Great.
So I will hand over again to Michael.
Thank you. So thank you for the presentations of the Eureka clusters. I'll jump over the questions again. We can have them afterwards. So the Eureka clusters, they facilitate R&D projects like the one that we have heard about, the project of Ikangai, where this was one part of the project, that are quite big. But of course, one ingredient is missing. That is, how are these projects funded? And we have mentioned it, these projects are funded by national budgets. And in Austria, these budgets are provided by the FFG. So the FFG is the national funding body for Eureka clusters. Now, our go-to program is FFG General Programs. So FFG General Programs has some properties, like it is a program for single firms. So this is individual companies applying to these big, or trying to participate in these big projects. The good thing is we don't have deadlines, it's all very flexible, but it maybe is not the if there are more companies on the Austrian side, each of them has to do an application at the FFG. And there is another program, I come to that later, where you can apply as an Austrian sub-consortium in a Eureka cluster project. But this is FFG general programs, Basisprogramme. They have funding for Eureka cluster projects. And these are the conditions. So you get grants, at least for small and medium enterprises. So you get grants of 60% for small enterprises, 50% for medium enterprises, and you get a funding mix of 50% for large companies. And universities and research organizations can only be subcontracted in FFG general programs, but it's single firm program that tries to support SMEs. On this slide, you can see the scoring and evaluation criteria that we apply nationally. We look at the innovation potential of the national part of a project, of a cluster project, the Austrian part. So is there enough quality, enough innovation? And we also look at the economic impact. Does it have potential for commercialization? And of course, recently climate and environment gets more important, and you have to meet also the sustainability goals. So that is a focus that has developed recently, but something that can be combined with AI often, as AI allows for certain optimization that also has impact on climate often. So there are other evaluation criteria. You can see them all on the slides, which we will share afterwards together with the recording. So FFG general programs, they support experimental development, so technological readiness level 5 to 7. Experimental development, bottom up, market oriented, so you can submit any topic, but it has to be market oriented and be placed in this technological readiness level. We also have a nice program that is called Project Start. So Project Start is not, does not have a big funding volume, but it supports a company in participating in an R&D project. So you can think of it like this: with Project Start, you can employ one person for 3 months to work on a project application, build a consortium, and all these things that you need to do to set up a project, to set up the application. Then you submit your application, and if the application is good enough, you get funding for the project. So there is a continuous funding from the conceptualization of the project until the end. So I already mentioned, next to FFG general programs, we have a lot of themed programs. So these are national calls with their own deadlines and their own thematic focus. So three big ones are production of the future, mobility of the future, information and communication technology of the future. And in these programs, Austria sub-consortia in a Eureka project can submit. It's possible that research organizations are direct partners. Theme programs also fund industrial research, not only experimental development. And you can strengthen your national application at theme programs by embedding your national consortium in an international project that has a wider reach, a bigger impact, and more innovation overall. Of course, you can find more information on all our web pages. To find partners, you can use the facilities provided by the clusters as already presented, the PO days, or you can use the Enterprise Europe network. If you have a concrete idea and you're looking for a partner that brings a concrete expertise, you can approach the Enterprise Europe network for partner search and for matchmaking. And also the Advantage Austria can help you find partners in foreign countries. These are our contacts. You can contact us anytime if you have questions about the Eureka clusters or the national funding conditions for your project, also for timelines and so on. So all kind of information. Really, we try to provide support. We are not the persons that in the end evaluate your projects, but we try to support you through this process of submitting the project. So really, you can call us anytime, and we are there for you. Okay, so thank you for your attention until now. We would like to stop the recording now